And for more on the outlook on China's economy and beyond, we're joined now by Zongyuan Zoe Liu, a fellow for international political economy at the Council on Foreign Relations. Thank you so much for your time. And I want to talk about China's impact on the global economy in a second. But first of all, Premier Qiang says China is still on track to reach its annual growth target of about 5%. The first quarter grew by about 4.5%. Is 5% a realistic goal given Chinese appetite for consuming locally?
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. Given last year's GDP growth was about 3%. So basically what we're talking about is a year-on-year growth starting from a relatively low point. So 5% growth is still achievable, especially given that China's China's export numbers are still very much vibrant.
And how critical is China to the successful functioning of the global economy, would you say?
I would say China's role is still very much important for the global market, and not only because China is the largest consumer of or importer of several major commodities, but also because China is the only country so far in the world that has the most comprehensive supply chains. So from that perspective, disruption in terms of a Chinese market would have ripple effect to very far in global market. But that being said, I would also say that right now, as Premier Qiang emphasized, the trend towards deglobalization and supply chain diversification, or in the context of de-risking, that probably is another headwind for China's continued economic growth, especially in the immediate term.
And I want to talk a little bit more about that, because how important is economic cooperation between the U.S. and China? And how achievable is that? Because as you mentioned, tensions have escalated between the two nations. And there is this move by some Western countries to de-risk, as you say, or reduce dependence on China as a trading partner.
So in the context of U.S.-China economic relations, I would want to take one step back, saying that China's continued economic growth for the last decade actually benefited tremendously from the existing international economic order or international trade order. And from that perspective, China's continued role being a stabilizing force in the global market would benefit not just China, but also the global environment as well. That being said, yes, there are a lot of discussions about decoupling, or now it's de-risking is a step back from decoupling. A lot of the narrative actually, there are narratives, but if you look into the trade numbers, even in the context of U.S.-China trade, U.S.-China trade, bilateral trade volume last year reached a new record. So from that perspective, I would say, yes, we have to separate the political narrative versus the actual trade number. But then again, right now, in terms of technology cooperation between the United States and China, I think we are in a relatively difficult, or perhaps extremely challenging area, because on the one hand, the United States is very much concerned about the potential use of, in particular, access to military grade technology that might strengthen China's military capacity. And then on the other hand, China is also speeding up in terms of indigenous innovation.
And that leads me to my next question, which is how crucial is further investment in the modernization of China as a means to building a stronger economy?
I think it's very important for China to continue investing in technology advancement or science and technology for two reasons. And the first reason is very crucial in terms of demographic challenges. The World Health Organization projected that China by 2040 is going to have about more than 400 billion people age above 60 years old. And with a lower birth rate, the demographic change basically means China is going to have less workers, and that is a very important factor of productivity. And on top of that, labor productivity is also another reason for Chinese economy to be worried about. So from that perspective, boosting technology development, investing in technology is very important to, on the one hand, addressing the demographic challenge, and then on the other hand, to improve labor productivity. And then secondly, given that China is now under a lot of pressure in terms of having access to Western technology because of export controls and things like that, it's important for China to invest in indigenous technology.
All right, a great conversation. Thank you so much. We'll have to leave it there. Zongyuan Zoe Liu, I hope I said that right. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.